I came into Hennon Gateway without a reason to stay, no contracts waiting, no cargo to move, no pressure to make credits. That alone made it different. Most stations announce themselves through urgency, jobs posted, ships cycling in and out, timers counting down in quiet corners of the interface, Hennon didn't do that. It existed whether I needed it or not, and for the first time in a long while. I let myself exist the same way. Elias used to say that the places that matter most are rarely the ones that ask something from you. They are the ones that show you who has already passed through, and how they behaved when no one was watching. So I took the time and watched. I watched how traffic moved through the interior lanes, which ships lingered longer than necessary, which pilots didn't rush to the boards. There was a rhythm here, subtle enough that you could miss it if you were focused on profit or efficiency. Elias would have noticed it immediately. Second measure rested quietly while I walked the station with my eyes instead of my feet. No rush to power up, no need to interact. I wasn't here to take anything. I was here to understand whether this place belonged to his trail. It did. Not loudly, not obviously, but in the way certain systems feel familiar before you know why, in the way time stretches, just enough to invite observation. Elias had passed through here not because it offered something, but because it allowed him to disappear without vanishing. When I left Hennon Gateway, I didn't leave with answers. I left with alignment. The trail didn't point me toward another station. It pointed me toward a fleet carrier. TFC a Symphonia Sphere. Fleet carriers don't linger by accident. They move with intent, or they stay put because someone wants them to be found. Elias trusted carriers when he needed space without isolation. Movement without exposure. There were places where people gathered quietly, where information moved through familiarity instead of systems. And there was something about this one that felt like a decision made long before I arrived. From the outside, a carrier is all structure and scale, a moving city that refuses to pretend it is small. It makes stations feel like local stops and makes pilots feel like visitors again. I drifted along the exterior longer than I needed, letting the size speak for itself. It was not threatening. It was deliberate. The kind of place someone chooses when they want time, not attention. I have learned that when Elias wanted to disappear, he did not vanish. He relocated into stillness. He used places where people arrived for their own reasons and left without asking questions. He preferred environments that did not demand a story. A fleet carrier does that. It holds space. It holds distance, and it holds silence in a way most stations can't. Inside, everything felt measured, not abandoned, not busy, settled. The hangar did not feel like a place where pilots rushed. It felt like a place where they waited. There is a difference between waiting because you are delayed and waiting because you are choosing to let something happen in its own time. I kept my eyes on the ships, not for their models or paint, but for their behavior. The ones that sat quiet. The ones that powered up and powered down without drama. The ones that felt like they were part of a routine that did not include outside opinions. Nobody asked me why I was there. No one offered work. That silence told me more than a conversation ever could. Elias had been here. Not loudly, not recently enough to leave a trail anyone could follow by accident, but recently enough that the place still carried his posture, the way ships were arranged, the way people moved without urgency, the way the air itself felt calm, as if nothing needed to be proven here. Fleet carriers are crossroads, not destinations. Elias used them to pivot, to let a trail cool behind him and warm ahead of him. If you were impatient, you would treat a carrier like a stop. If you were disciplined, you would treat it like a question. And that was the difference this journey has been teaching me over and over. I did not come here to take anything. I did not come here to buy cargo or accept a mission. I came here to confirm that the trail was real and to see what kind of place it led through. The carrier gave me that confirmation without saying a word. I plotted my course to Egeta Terminal. Not because it stood out, but because it did not. Because it looked like the kind of place people overlook. Elias always said the most revealing stops are the ones no one is watching. Places that do not advertise importance, places that feel ordinary. Until you arrive with the right eyes. As the course locked in, I felt it clearly. The trail wasn't scattered anymore. It was folding inward. Then I returned to Second Measure's cockpit. There is always a moment when everything in Second Measure is quiet and still before the systems come alive, where the ship is neither resting nor moving. She is simply waiting, trusting me to decide what matters next on the list. I sat with that moment longer than I used to. I let my hands stay off the controls. Let the silence do its work. Because that is what Elias taught me, and I had been listening. When I powered Second Measure back up, it was not the beginning of movement, it was the beginning of commitment.
Shields online.
Shields came online. Systems checked in. The familiar hum returned. Steady and patient, I watched the interface populate the way you watch a sunrise with awe. It was beautiful just making certain that each module was coming online. Then I set the next point on the trail. As I waited for my clearance, I looked out the front cockpit view. I wondered if all those other ships moving around in space was chasing something too. What were they chasing? Were they chasing credits, factions, missionary good deeds? Or just a place to get away and live in peace? And for the first time, leaving a location, whether it was a station, a planet, or the carrier, did not feel like leaving a location. It felt like stepping through a doorway.
Landing gear retracted.
Ship released. Ship departure confirmed.
The space between meaningful places has its own weight. It's where doubt usually finds room to grow. This time, it didn't.
Frame shift.
The systems between Hen and Gateway, the carrier, and what came next felt quiet, but not empty. Ships moved through supercruise in predictable lanes. Contacts appeared and passed without incident. No one challenged my presence, and no one acknowledged it either. That kind of neutrality only exists when the universe has already decided you belong where you are. Elias believed pressure rarely announces itself. If someone doesn't want you somewhere, they don't always push you away. Sometimes they simply stop making it easy to continue. Routes become inconvenient, timing slips, opportunities evaporate. The impatient, they turn back long before they realize they were tested. That hadn't happened yet. The trail didn't feel urgent. It felt deliberate, like something laid down carefully, knowing only a certain kind of pilot would follow it all the way through. Someone willing to stay attentive even when nothing dramatic was happening. Someone who understood. That silence is not absence, it's information.
Lakon, Uniform November Bravo. Station services are on standby for your arrival, Commander. Good to have you.
E.g. the terminal didn't stand out on the map. That's why it mattered. Elias favored places like this when something important was close. Stations that didn't draw attention, didn't host traffic spikes, didn't attract pilots looking for opportunity. They existed to serve a function and then get out of the way. The approach was calm. Docking clearance came through without delay, without comment.
Approved for access. Proceed to landing pad 09er.
As I made my way to the mail slot, I watched ships pass at different vectors, some in no hurry at all. I watched traffic patterns settle and disperse. I watched how nothing about this stretch of space felt hostile. Even though it offered no guarantees, that balance mattered. Elias always trusted environments. That didn't force outcomes. I wasn't being rushed. I wasn't being blocked. I was being allowed to continue. That's how you know you're on the right path.
Ground crew on standby. Regulate your speed, Commander. This is a traffic warning, Commander. Please make way for oncoming ships.
Scan detected.
As I slid through the mail slot, the station opening up around us, I felt that familiar feeling again. Not danger. Not urgency. Expectation.
Landing gear deployed.
Solid contact. You may disembark when ready. Welcome to the station, Commander.
The trail hadn't ended, it had slowed down. Elias always slowed when the next step mattered, when the wrong choice could cost more than credits.
Shields offline.
I powered the ship down and let the hangar settle around us. No mission waiting. No prompt to act. Just a sense that whatever came next wouldn't be accidental. There's a moment when following becomes commitment. When you realize you're no longer testing a path, you're trusting it. That moment had already passed. Elias wasn't leaving breadcrumbs for just anyone. He was shaping the trail so only someone willing to move the way he talked could follow it. quietly, deliberately, without forcing outcomes. I wasn't late. I wasn't lost. I was exactly where I needed to be. The distance between us wasn't measured in systems anymore. It was measured in understanding. And for the first time since he disappeared, that distance felt manageable.